Hi, my name is Michael Chikeen. The smartest people I've met have one common belief, that us silly humans really don't know much. For example, we still don't know why planes stay in the air, or how Tylenol or even gravity works. Yeah, gravity. Look it up. In today's distracted, clickbait, misinformation age, I wish we could all be less certain, more humble, and a lot more curious. Admittedly, I've been known to struggle with all three. So no more, no less, this show is my attempt to be that change. Thanks for joining me, and here we go. Hey everybody, welcome back to No More, No Less. I'm your host, Michael Chikeen, and today in the studio, I have Thomas, the AI nerd, Helfrich, with me today. Thomas is the host of the AI Nerd YouTube channel and also the CEO and founder of InstantlyRelevant.com, which uses human-led AI to help businesses grow faster. Today, I'm hoping for a major nerd fest to help people learn more about exactly what AI is, what it isn't, but also what the future implications might be. So we're going to cover how AI can help in the short term before it becomes our overlords by the end of the decade. Thomas Helfrich, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Appreciate it.
I'm excited to talk about AI because I think a lot of people are either really into it, like I'm excited about it, you're super into it, well, you've founded a business based on it, but a lot of people, I think it's just a word they hear in the background, so they're not really sure what's coming, what's already happening. And so maybe if we can start a little bit for how you got into becoming an expert in AI and how you got to where you are now, and then we can get into like exactly what AI is and help people get this.
I'd be happy to. Thanks again for having me on. It's very cool to be invited. My background a little bit. I'm born out of the .com time. I entered into the world as a developer here. I definitely remember myself being a better developer than I was, no doubt about that. But I always spoke really well about technology, and so that took me down the consulting path, the advisory path. And so you do business technology, what it does to your company, how do you implement it, what's the implications, and so being able to hold that conversation from the executive level down to the technical has been typically my skill set. In the last 10 years or so, I've really formed an expertise around intelligent automation and AI systems. And that's where you use technology with human-led technology to automate as much of a process as possible to accelerate the human. And my point of view is not to replace them. So the right human, right technology, right moment, you can really do more daily and as a business as a whole and as a collective. This is where my journey took me, where going from let's say a manager level of a consulting company to chief innovation officer of a nearly $1 billion services company. I applied those rules of thinking to solve different problems in business or sales or what have you. But the specific on the AI side, I saw a big problem in the marketing space, and so I kind of took that, started my own company, and said, hey, I think we could do functions of lead generation and marketing better, leveraging these technologies that exist just by kind of elegantly solutioning them together. But the AI nerd title, I bought AInerd.com for like $15. That's what it was, and then I was like, ooh, I might as well do something with that.
Yeah, well, a lot of those domain purchases normally don't get used, so I think you're ahead of a lot of us. So many domains just sit there for years and years. But I think maybe if you could give us an overall idea before we get into the idea for what you're using AI for right now. But as you said, there's a lot of these things in the background that people are hearing in which AI is going to displace 300 million jobs in the next 10 years. AI is coming for insurance, lawyers, finance, all of these things. And I think what you're saying also seems to be part of the equation in which AI is going to help people accelerate tasks that they're already doing, making more efficient, and obviously automating some of it. But how would someone who has no idea what AI is, how can they understand it?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's a lot there to unpack. I will say AI is, stands for artificial intelligence at a basic just concept. And, jokingly, it's everything we can't yet do in technology. And so there's this perceived notion that it's so advanced, and it's like, the Sentinel, and it's going to create this. It's incredibly strong computation power mixed with the ability for a machine to learn either independently or with inputs from a human. And what it can do is take mass amounts of data and not even make predictions, but actually do some type of thinking based on extreme amounts of fuzzy logic. The biggest and probably most common example right now that people are more familiar with example is ChatGPT. Here in 2023, we're on GPT-4, which is the latest version of that. And the beauty of that is they distributed this as a chat, so almost like you're talking to a human. And we could talk about a little bit later about how to leverage that tech. But that AI is the first glimpse that people have had at a mass level, at a practical level day to day, of how they can leverage it to create content, to do some thinking, to just have a conversation around strategy in the chat. But that's what AI can do. It can solve things that humans can, but it can just do it at an incredible scale. The idea that AI will displace 300 million jobs is probably true, except the flip side of that is it'll probably create 500 million jobs. I mean, it'll probably create way more, and not probably, it will create more jobs because just the nature of what the job will just change. You'll not have to do certain roles, but the roles that you will need to do that the technology has not caught up with will accelerate because there'll just be more of it. And so it'll create different types of positions, new things, new niches, because people will be different. They'll be using the technology different. So, I mean, history's told us that, right? From the automobile to electricity, these things never. Candle makers went down when the electricity came up, but there's other things that came up from it too. So,
Right. I do tend to side with that school of thought as well. Like I think humans in general, eventually, I think we'll be creating things, and we'll also be entertaining ourselves to death, which is like a book from the 70s or 80s. But I think we can already see it. Like so many eyeballs and likes and sponsorship dollars are going to people that are essentially making cat videos and dance videos, and
right.
a couple is traveling around the world, and we're paying them how much money based on sponsorship revenue that they're getting just for traveling. Like these things are, if you would have said this even 25 years ago, it would be the punchline at a Tonight Show joke. And so,
But I think though that like what you're describing though is the less than a 1% people who are actually. There's a lot of people who see that. There's people who've gotten lucky or they're gifted to get it done like that. But the truth matters. Most social media, right? Like, and those vanity metrics really don't matter. They only matter to a very few. What really matters is how you're tying it to other parts of your business. So, if you have a YouTube channel, what is it you're selling? Is it the YouTube channel, or is it services that you're talking about? And so and we can get into the weeds about how you use social media without having to be a mega influencer and and still leverage them correctly to make your entrepreneurial business or whatever else grow. But
right,
the ultra influencers, the famous, if you will, it's such a rare thing. It's a truly an unrealistic goal to some degree.
well, yeah, I'll take that on board. I think they're really big influencers. They're making the big money. Yeah, they're, I think, even less than 1%. But I would say there's a lot of people out there that are we're giving a lot of eyeballs to people that have 20,000 to 50,000 views, and these aren't people that do anything. They just either they look good, or it's a mom that's great at giving a funny dance or a joke every now and then. And I think at some point those people will learn how to monetize those accounts even better, because they say like where attention flows, a lot of money will as well. And
That's
so
right.
I think we will I hope we can find a more productive way to entertain one another. But I think there's going to be this like person-to-person services business about how we entertain each other or how we help each other in different aspects of our lives. I think eventually that's going to be a gigantic industry. But right now, for the businesses that are here and actually producing either goods or services, I think AI, it seems like, can start to automate all of these tasks. Like even in coding, I'm sure you're seeing already that AI is writing so much code. So are there any businesses that come to mind that you're seeing that AI can be plugged in and already it's producing a lot of value for these businesses?
Well, in some support functions for sure. It's marketing being an example, or content creation. It's doing a fantastic job for that.
Right.
It does very good for even strategy. So some of the stuff of just thinking through the basics of a go-to-market strategy or just a business strategy. You can also take an idea of persona with some of these things. So when you're using ChatGPT 4, for example, you could say, hey, take the persona of a customer that's skeptical, and here's my services, and this. What are they going to ask? How do I overcome those objections? And so it can do a really good job for those types of.
Wow.
Yeah, it's almost coaching. You described something interesting where there's a lot of people helping each other out there in this kind of future world. That'll also be predicated, though, on experience in life. And so if there's people are having less life experience, there's going to be a lot more people in need of help navigating life. So I think with all the technology, I think there'll be a circle back to people, but the idea to do it at some kind of mass scale to connect. And we've already seen it, with the onset of COVID, more and more people are connecting via Zoom meetings. I rarely do face-to-face meetings because we don't have to, because most people prefer to just meet here. And if you happen to go to a networking event, you can, but the businesses I think that are really cool with AI right now, I think that are going to be impacted. I think things like law will be a big one, but it'll be slow because of just how long it's a complete change in systems.
Right.
For example, in the GPT example again, I think the GPT-3 passed the bar exam, or passed a bar exam, I should say it that way, and GPT-4 I think passed at the 90 percentile. And so
Wow.
and so people are using it for legal, and that's only going to improve because it can pull in an instant all case law that's relevant in all states, countries, whatever, federal. And so the research piece of that's what's going to really be accelerated. Insurance will be a big one. It's all basically a numbers actuary piece. So AI is already playing a place with that, specifically in how they pay out, what's considered like a write-off, how they price it, all this stuff. Looking at all the data, see if you have claims here. That's already being applied at big. Another one in a large industry is healthcare. I think today AI is used very small amounts in more startup land and maybe a couple things in more mainstream. But I think though, fast forward 20, 25 years, just because it's such a lagger technology market or industry, I think it'll be almost negligent if doctors aren't using AI as part of their evaluation. And so I think you'll have a major shift there where if you're not using AI to help look at scans, look at your data, look at other things, it will certainly, I think there'll be a shift of mindset from the generations that'll come up. In that, though, at the same time, that same data is going to be used at pharma and other things to sell you more drug. It's going to all be tied into that. And that's where it's a little bit scary. But I think those are three. From a small business, you should just be using it to automate as many tasks as you can, create content quicker. You'll still need humans in all these things, but if you're a small business and you're just kind of doing it yourself, there's some things that can accelerate you. Better to be, honestly, as you get revenue to invest in partners that know how to do that stuff really well or do functions for you so you can focus on your core business and growing your revenue.
Right. Yeah, a couple of things you mentioned sparked some ideas in me that I've seen over the past couple of years even where, well, actually even most recently there's a study that came out that said AI is already diagnosing people better or patients better and with more empathy than doctors are. And that's just with like the basic AI that we have out right now. That's not saying what the next 5 years is going to bring. And there's someone I know in Canada that has an AI pharmacy business, or it's like a software business that they've just recently plugged AI into, and that's to help pharmacists look at their client list and what all the contraindications are for all the medications that people are taking, and just from the medications they're taking, AI is saying, oh, this person also has this that they should have diagnosed. They're not taking medication for this. So it's helping people get diagnoses that they otherwise never would have seen. And so
Yeah, absolutely.
I think a lot of that is going to be insanely helpful. But like you said, like who knows how else we're going to be using it to sell to people. And that's kind of the black box. Whereas insurance, I think the thing holding insurance back is I was invested in an insurtech company that's now pivoted to another model that's faster to generate revenue, but originally they were going to be like an IoT sort of insurance plugin for a lot of these giant companies where you can understand, okay, this is what's happening in this person's car, inside their house, and have all this data, and so they can do away with the actuaries and deal with real time what someone's policy premiums should be. And all the companies they spoke to, like AIG, Zurich, and all these giants, really loved it and wanted it, but the sales cycles for these gigantic institutions just couldn't do it within like a reasonable time that a startup can deal with them, and they want to stay alive. So I guess it depends, like in the future, how quickly these things can be implemented, and then how quickly the business is able to adapt.
Yeah, and just from a big business standpoint too, and even the smaller, but there's a whole degree of explainability and transparency in the models and the outcomes that isn't happening right now. There's no regulations around that, so an AI, so to speak, can recommend things, but if it can't explain why or how, that's a problem. And
Right.
because when these models are built, there's there's biases that are in them based on based on the data that's leveraged in the past, based on the model itself. And so these explainability and transparency are going to become, at a much bigger level, front and center as far as regulatory of how it can be used. If you're using AI in a business, what you need to do. So there'll be a ton of stuff that'll slow it down, but put some kind of filters on it. But it's going to move very quickly. For small businesses, like you just need to avoid technology fatigue, which is trying every technology in the world to kind of solve problems. I'd recommend honestly just slow down, figure out what it is that you need to solve, and find a technology that can do that and accelerate you. But big business versus small, they're two different kind of worlds. But we're on a path. The genie is out of the bottle now. So look at education, right? So kids used to have to write. Now they can go to GPT-4 and say, "Oh, write me an article about this, this, and this," and it does it beautifully. It sources it. It does all that. And a lot of the education things they're penalizing for that, or they're failing them because you can see if an AI wrote it by putting in a program that says, "Hey, can AI predict the next word with a certain level of certainty? If so, it was probably written by an AI." Right. So the kids will get around that; they'll figure it. But I would argue, like, who cares? Like, test the kid on what they had written for them. What did they learn versus what technology did they use to accelerate themselves? So I think there's a shift in education coming of how you perceive and use these technologies in day to day, because we're stuck in an old model in education right now, and this new model of how you learn things it doesn't match. I mean, kids can. It does not match at all between the books in classroom versus what you can go do on a phone in 20 seconds.
Right. It would be like, well, when I was in school, I remember there were like you had to write in exam essays. Like you were sitting for the exam and you had to write a 4-page essay on this one question. And AI definitely can't teach you something at that time. If you don't have your phone on you, you have to go with what's in your head. Whereas if someone has to write like a 5-page paper in grade 12 on a president or a prime minister, well then AI is going to be doing that all day long.
Well, right. But even then, like, AI can be leveraged of any topic. What is the best format to leverage in a thing? And you can memorize the format and you're off to a good start, right? I mean, it's in a 4-page essay that doesn't require any sourcing. It's just going to be from whatever content's in front of them anyway. Plenty of cheating will go on. We're just going to take a picture of it and it's going to do it for you. So the nature of it's just going to change. The nature of education of not sticking to the way we always did it because that's what we're doing. But there's all the systematic things that come from that. Is how do you leverage that technology so the kids and the people who are, the young adults in college or whatever are ready for the real world of how to leverage tech to. Right. Otherwise, college loses its value if it has no actual training to what you're going to do except proving that you can show up to work every day.
Sure.
That's going to fundamentally change.
Well, I think I'm surprised even already of hearing friends that are already using ChatGPT like they would Google for answers and things like that. Like I'm a big fan of Google. I like their search engine. Obviously, if you're going to search anything nutrition or supplement wise, good luck to you to find anything helpful. But I think if I have a question on something, I like looking on that first page or second page and seeing like, okay, what are the more accurate links that might pertain to this? Oh, this thing looks like trash. Whereas if it's just coming from the AI and they're giving you one answer, I personally would never trust that. So I think what you said makes a good point that they have to be able to analyze their own code, so to speak. Like if you're going to bring up statistical data on something to prove a thesis of a question asked to you in a prompt, well, how did you come to that? Like, can you explain this logic to me? And then the human and the AI can maybe have a bit of a, discourse, so to speak. Like, are you seeing that as well? People like just going to ChatGPT and using it to get a bunch of answers?
Yeah, so you've seen us drop in Google search and some other things since. So there's more people going to it. For example, if you wanted to figure out your follower growth rate, right? We put it in for a customer the other day to show them, and it actually explains the math, and it says, hey, this is what it is. If you analyze it, and it actually takes you through the whole thing in an explanation mode, which is what Google doesn't do. It just gives you the answer and some kind of reference of an article you need to go read up. But if you could do it in real time in a chat and have it explained, that's very powerful. It does change the nature of how you interact with an AI, but at the same time, when you're doing that AI is further learning. So the more people who interact with it, it is. But I was going to go back to something. If you ask the AI to provide the sources of where it got its information, it will. Right. I mean, so you can put it in there, and so the nature of search is going to change, and I think the nature because search will become more of search and explain, and then validate, if you will. But that's I don't know if it's a threat to Google or search engine because I think it just advances it.
Right. Well, I would imagine, isn't Google's called Bard?
Yeah, they
Is
have
that
their
right?
own as well.
And so I think depending the quality of Bard, then I think we'll just end up using it within Google products. Like Apple Maps to me is still complete garbage. But if I use like Google Maps and they have Bard in there and I can type in like find me a brunch spot that has gluten-free options. And then you get all these things. I think that is when people will be like, okay, we'll just stay with these Google products that we know and love now that we can use AI.
Exactly, and AI would be a better. I mean, a different example would be AI would already know you haven't eaten. You're on a, you have some
Right.
kind of, you're on an intermittent fast, and you're trying to do keto. You can say, hey, this is a really good option for keto. I know I'm trying to keep you in there.
Right.
You're not chunky, but if you're
Yeah.
chunky, like, hey, you might toy with you, like, hey, don't get chunky again. What your wife said. I mean, I may be self-reflecting here,
Yeah.
and so my point is, it'll be more like that it gets you in line with what's going on in your life, and based on real reviews, real time stuff. So like it, there's this will be the future. It'll be more integrated with what's already there. And you are right. It
Right.
will. Google is not behind. They're just they weren't first to market.
Yeah, and because I don't know if there's a conversation between the Bing and Bard and which is better or not, but I think because are they separate from OpenAI? Are these different software foundations for AI?
Yeah, they're different, completely different model sets. So
Okay.
the BART's its own version of it. So ChatGPT is OpenAI's version of it, which is heavily invested in by Microsoft. That'll definitely find its way into Bing for search engine. There's open source ones that are out there. We could probably fall asleep talking about all that, but the truth of the matter is there is going to be competitive models that are out there. There'll be open source ones that'll probably leverage all of it, and
Right.
it's yeah. I mean, it's going to come fast.
I think people will be more interested once it becomes like fun to use as well. I think like if you can like your AI assistant, you can give it like a sarcasm level, a type of voice.
Oh,
Maybe
you can
you
do that
can
now.
you
So
could be like,
you can
really?
definitely do that now. Yeah. I've had articles written, like I'll give you some. I've gotten you website copy written,
Hmm.
and we're like, hey, now make it more fun and cheeky with a bit of saucy attitude, and it'll do it. And it's, I use it for even for so when we do podcasts, I'll take like for this podcast, we could leverage it to do the highlights, do all the translations in real time. I can take the whole podcast, dump the whole transcription into GPT-4, and say, write an article about the salient points of this podcast. Create create 5 social media posts about it. What kind of images should I use? It'll give a recommendation. It'll do all that now. Now write this with a bit of, what was the tonality of the interviewer or the interview. It can do all that now.
Wow. I didn't know you could just like what you can upload. I guess you're using an API connection to OpenAI, and so you can upload a video to it, so it can analyze it and understand what's going
Yeah,
on.
so right now you just do another step, like you use like something like Otter or Fathom or something like this, and you just get the transcription. Eventually, you'll be able to drop the video over and just say, hey, there's some prompts you can set up, and it'll just go through a whole thing of here's the article, here's social media, here's the highlights, here's all your social media posts, boom, 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 done.
Wow, and it's
It's
all
pretty close
accurate.
to that now, but yeah, that's definitely a use case. And then eventually you'll be able to take the whole video. There's already technology coming out that segregate the video into like social media posts already and reformat it and connect all your
Man,
stuff.
I could really use that. Maybe I'll look into that afterwards because
Well, we do it for our customers now because there's just human steps involved. But that's what we do a lot of times for our customers. Is we create content, we take their pieces and put them together, and then you just work on podcast. Your core. I'll go back to that whole thing. What's your core competency? I want this podcast to go. So go find more customers. Find more people on the show. We just do all the social media side and leverage tech the whole way through it. So it's faster. The cost savings and value go to you.
wow. Then oh yeah, okay. I think after this call we can have more of a chat then because
Anybody can learn more at instantlyrelevant.com.
right.
Instantlyrelevant.com did not sponsor the show, but if it did, it would tell you to go to instantlyrelevant.com.
Oh, you're doing like the radio voice now, so you repeat it enough times and they'll think of it forever.
Instantlyrelevant.com.
Because the idea in all these AI tools coming forward, I don't think anyone knows kind of what's coming. Like I think it'll seem like a tsunami wave to some people, because if you're not aware that it's already in so many parts of our lives that we're interacting with, in 5 years you're gonna wake up and you're gonna be like, it's Skynet. Like where did this come from?
Yeah,
So
well, there'll be an age generational gap that always happens, right? And It's kind of like us 40-year-olds trying to figure out TikTok. I mean, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I think.
I want
But
nothing to do. I want nothing to do with it. I want nothing to do with it because I have friends that have told me how quote unquote great it is and how they'll just scroll for hours, and I'm like, that sounds like it'll hijack my brain. Like I don't want that. It's like
yeah.
it's like friends that like have done cocaine and I've never tried it, and they're like, oh, you should try it. I'm like, they're like, oh, you'll like it. Well, I know I'll like it. Like that's what it's designed for. Like I'm like, that's a test I don't need to do.
Yeah. Oh, except I like it. I'm just not going to do it. I'm agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
But I never did any of those kind of drugs either, and it's people would describe how they felt on it. I'm like thinking, I feel like that all the time. Like I don't need that. I don't know what the hell I'd feel like on that. I might just be really paranoid and
Right.
up all
Yeah,
night.
that's probably a good call. Like it's so I guess what's on the horizon for ChatGPT right now? Like for people that are already using it, and I think you're so in the know since you said you've used OpenAI since it was in beta. Like how can you tell what's coming and how soon can we expect it?
Well, I think you'll see a release of this yearly, of just major release, and then it looks like they'll do like 4, 4.5, then a 5 release in different models.
Right.
I honestly I don't think there's any limitations right now of what it could do. I mean, we were talking off camera a little earlier that these, not ChatGPT but just AI in general, right? You can speak to some of these technologies like an AI for a few seconds, a minute, and it can replicate your voice, tonality, all this. I mean, so the kind of things that you could do with that from let's say marketing, lead generation, or from social media content creation to scams and frauds, where like imagine if some son comes and is calling the mom. It's not really the son asking, "Hey, I forgot my social security number. Could you give it to me, mom?" Like, I mean, like think about that, right?
Oh no.
Oh yeah, sure. How you been? I've been so great. Sorry, I can't. I can't talk right now, but I just need to get this done. Like, thanks for giving it to me. And it's over. And like, so you have this like that's going to happen. On the therapeutic side, maybe that same image in the video of someone who's passed, and you feel like you need to talk to them, and like so there's like that can happen. Like, I mean, there's mind blowing things of therapy that they're discussing of. Basically, it's your digital self that could exist. So if they have all the videos you've ever said, or if you've, the AI in general, I think this is a crazy use case, but if you talk to an AI for, say, for hours or days with the idea that you want your kids to remember you, how you were, and they could interact with it as if it was you, I'm not sure what that does to the closure set, but that's certainly something that could happen, that you don't really ever die. You just kind of like, you're dead, you're gone, but your personality, your image, your likeness, and your voice is always there.
Wow. Yeah, and that would really diminish, even without us accepting it, I think it would diminish the value of death as well. Because if you have that person around,
I mean, you're still dead, to be clear.
In perpetuity. No, but I mean, like for other people, like the younger people that I think in general, I don't think you very much have an awareness of the permanency of death, I think, until you become a little bit older. And
right.
and so if you're always talking to that person, even that idea of grief probably, like you said, maybe you don't get that closure, maybe you don't get that ability to, I don't know, that's a huge philosophical debate that I'm sure people
that's an ethical moral. So
get wrong.
There'll be there's a lot of ethical moral things that are going to be there. I mean, the AI, what it can do for even in genetic engineering and biomed, like, I mean, it'll be applied there where I'm already convinced cloning's already happened, but like it'll take it to a whole new level. So it's going to be applied in a lot of cool, very neat, amazing, day-to-day, fun ways. It'll be done nefariously. It's the yin and yang, right? For every good, it could be used just as bad,
Right.
But I'll tell you, for the entrepreneur, to come back to what they are, and for the people who are just kind of, just hanging out in life, they're not trying to become presidents or, own pharma companies or anything like crazy big, it'll benefit you more than it's probably going to hurt you. And the ways it'll be hurtful will, it'll have its challenges, but it's going to be at a mass scale. And, this is where the things that'll test time of like democracy or just voting and all those things will matter, because you'll regulate how these technologies are going to impact your life generally day to day. And that's, those systems will still pull through because of that. I think that's some of the beauty of it.
Right. Yeah. I think we have no choice but to be optimists here, like that this is going to be good for a lot of us. But I think like maybe a skeptical optimist being like, okay, some things maybe we don't know yet, and maybe we should tread lightly. Because the one thing that I was surprised is happening already, that they're saying there's reports of like a lot of people, like a non-small number, non-trivial number that have already entered relationships with AI chatbots. And this is
Yep.
like ChatGPT 4. Like this isn't like the movie Her, where there's an actual discussion relationship, or the new Blade Runner, for example. This is like just people chatting like it's what, MSN Messenger or ICQ from the late 90s. Like, so I don't know where this goes, because if this idea is that more people are developing social anxiety, and that's another topic for why all that's happening, then people want to enter into relationships less, and relationships even before AI, 90% of them were ending. Like, it's not like, even what, 40% of marriages now still end in divorce. So it's like people are just defaulting to the path of least resistance. And if that becomes
Yep.
a healthy quote unquote relationship with an AI that makes people happier than getting their heart broken, then I don't know. Is that what happens to humanity? I don't know. Like,
Well,
I'm surprised
it's
it's
a big
happening
debate,
already.
right? So the adult world, the adult film or whatever industry is like they're always taking the latest technology and applying it. I don't know why that is or what happens, but it's like that's where like DVDs came through first. It's where Betamax, VHS, like all that stuff goes to the electronics kind of thing, goes into this kind of adult, nefarious industry first.
Oh, right. Hold
And
on. There's actually a movie called Middlemen about like how the ability to use your credit card online came from the porn
yeah,
industry, because they needed a way to charge people. And so they developed
right.
that technology just for that.
Exactly. So I mean, so it's not an industry I care to be in, but understand that's where a lot of technology comes through to solve things for that.
Right.
And you described like the kind of relationship chatbot. That's going already further with just maybe a full body experience with suits and VR and AR and things like that, where there's it's not going to all be anything, but yes, there are a lot of things that people do that for personal use, for therapy, whatever else. But that's certainly coming to light. Like it's
Right.
the world is going to be very different for by the time I'm if I get to double my age here, it'll be unknown. It'll be completely different, as it is probably for every generation. So if you go like 100
Right.
years, you look back, you'd be like, "There's no way in hell I could have lived during that time." The end of your life, it might be like, "Holy cow, these kids are like, I could never have done what my great great grandpa did." So,
Yeah.
but that's it. I mean, it's always going to be this, always going to evolve. It's just make sure we don't use it to blow ourselves up and wipe ourselves off the map. How
Well,
about
I
that?
do tend to agree with it. In 10 years, I don't think people really understand the difference that this world's going to be for how we relate to each other and communicate. Like, even just to go back to the adult industry for a moment, for whatever reason, there's a lot of these porn companies in Spain. And not too long ago, I met someone that was doing like accounting for one of these companies, and I didn't even know they worked for like a porn company or an adult company. And they were telling me that there's even like VR already that's really far ahead, that people are doing like
Mhm.
VR porn now. I didn't even know that was a thing. And so you can imagine if Midjourney, for example, which is an app that you can put in a prompt and it creates
Image, yep.
a fairly good image, like every version seems so much better. Well, then how long does it take to create that image to then to create a video or movie? And then you don't even need the actors. And then people are going to be creating movies without actors, maybe just voice actors, if that's even
We won't
necessary.
have to because you can use someone's voice. Exactly. So
Right.
that changes. You're spot on. Like so, that's happening now. I think with I won't call it deep fakes, but the ability to use just high level graphics CGIs to create things.
Right.
And there's like I said, from the adult industry to just let's say therapy of like you need to train your arm or whatever else. You can have full body suits that can enact all types of things on your body. I'm sure to help you go through recovery for an injury or something much more like in line with the adult industry. All that's coming. The VRs, the augmented reality is pretty cool as well, where you're in the world and you're seeing additional things. I mean, the world that the AI is behind all behind that, and it's I would tell you the advice I have to anybody out there like who's just from the business level is just be aware of it, keep yourself educated, but don't forget you're gonna have to pivot, you're gonna have to leverage some of this technology, be aware of it, how it impacts your business along this journey.
Right. I I want to talk about art a little bit. I don't know how much you know about this because some conversations I have with AI with friends that are really, really, really far outside the tech world, but they're huge appreciators of art or even creators as well. Like I was even, so I'm in the middle or at the start of trying to write a nonfiction book, and I was getting stuck on one part of my outline, and so I'm like, well, let me plug in my goal here with a good big prompt to ChatGPT and see if it can help me. And it didn't create like the whole thing for me, but it really created enough of an idea to get my brain loose because then I have something I can play with, and that I'm even as an entrepreneur I've been really good at that. If I can just get something out the door, I can start moving different pieces and realizing what I'd like and don't like. And so my friend is always arguing that well, but this isn't created by a human. This is so it's never going to be like this. And my point is that I think we greatly overestimate how intelligent humans are and what computers can and cannot do. I think we have this idea of human supremacy that's really far up here, but I think we're much closer to AI that can create real appreciable art in the future. And so I'd love to know what you think about that.
Yeah, well, art and the idea that a visual and a written, let's say, book, exactly. I know it
Songs.
will because,
Yeah.
yeah. So the idea that I think of putting into some type of prompt, whatever it is, say, hey, I want, this is what makes this room is about happy. It's about this. I like these kinds of colors. I enjoy the beach. I don't like this. And it has a persona of your art. It could probably create and recommend things it could just print and send. Of like, hey, here's something that should drive that image. You could look at it and go, I really do like that, and you could buy it. And now, who owns it? So it's an original copy. Do you own it? I don't know, but for sure, it'll
Right.
be used to generate art. It's doing it now, and But I think on the book is interesting. You could put into there and say, hey, I'm gonna write a book. You're gonna help me write a book. GPT-4, great. Create the outline where there's a foreshadow, there's a hook, there's some kind of twist. Could you set that whole thing up from a chapter standpoint of introduce your twist, like just from the basics, and then you could go chapter by chapter with it and write it and say,
Yeah.
hey, let's continue the storyline. Uh, would that be any good? I don't know, but I mean, imagine it took you an afternoon to make, and then you say, hey, listen, Midjourney, can you put a cover on this thing? And you go put it on Amazon 2 days later, and you sell 1,000 copies or two, and it's okay. It's like I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
you write it to like a kid's level. Hey, give me a story, and it doesn't have to be super complicated. It just has to be thoughtful, and Anyway, I think there's big use for how you create content and art and other things that's already there, and I think. I mean, it's certainly able. Well, I think a big premium that will always be there will be creativity, though, and true authenticity and true original thought. So, as more and more people create things that are AI driven, those who have created it without any help and become something brand new, they'll have higher value. It'll be it won't be the norm, but I think it'll be like those people will still be highly sought out.
Interesting. Yeah, I hope that's the case. That at least we have a lot more innovation. But I wonder how long it is until you need a very small prompt, or you say, okay, AI, based on these series of movies in this genre, and you give it a Christopher Nolan, you give it a Scorsese, you give it a whatever, and then just say, come out with a new idea that would be as impressive as these or whatever. That's a really basic idea.
Yeah, I mean, like you could say, style it after this director. I mean, but still, that director had a stylistic piece, so
Right.
um,
Yeah, and
it'll
I wonder
continue.
because even there's an AI prompt I saw saying AI create a new game based on this, and it created a brand new like Sudoku type game that was like kind of fun to play. Like I tried it one
Mhm.
afternoon, and it was fun enough for an AI to come up with it in a
Oh,
heartbeat.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like you look at some Roblox games that are just the leveling up quickly. You can get weapons, you can buy things, and like the models around how fast an AI could spin something up from a code. It's like, hey, create a game that has these elements. It's fun. It's graphic. It's this, whatever. It's
Right.
multi. It can do that now. I mean, to some degree, it can create the pseudocode for it. Almost. I mean, you can do that right now.
Right. And what
It's
because we're in peak TV right now, I would say, like with all these streaming services, like I could probably name 30 series right now that people are loving and they're highly rated. We've never had anything like that before since TV was invented. So I wonder if the future is that if AI can create all of these things, you just give it okay, download all whatever 7 8 seasons of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and give me another 5 seasons that I can watch. And then you have to pay for AI to do that. And then you just watch that opposed to logging onto Netflix or whatever.
Yeah, I think it'll be the hologram room from, I'll take it a step further from Star Trek where you're immersed in it. So you walk in, it's a hologram. I think your movie room in the future will be, you'll be part of the story. You'll be able to kind of pick and choose the direction based on your thoughts, interactions, how they work with you. I think that it takes it to a whole new level of storytelling of like, hey, I've watched this movie and I found like a new path for it, and this becomes almost like Westworld, if you will, or some type of thing where you're part of the character set, but you're not vital, but you aren't influencing the story.
I've never been so on board for AI than that idea that you just
Yeah,
presented.
I mean
Like,
Westworld. I don't know if you've seen the show
yeah, of
Westworld, but
course.
that's like that's a whole different version of it, right? I mean, so like but yeah, just from your home to be part of this. So imagine sports. Sports still might be played, but imagine if you could be in the helmet of Tom Brady while he's throwing. Like so, you could get different views, angles, AI, and get to experience you are. So you can, you're the ball. I mean,
Right.
there's a
Well,
there's a lot of ways that this could be applied.
even like the emotional
Concerts.
resonance to be in like
Yeah.
one of your favorite sci-fi creations. Like, so are you familiar with the movie The Goonies?
Oh yeah, of
Right.
course.
So it's an 80s movie that one of my top 5 favorite. And about 40 minutes outside Barcelona, there's a Goonies escape room that took these people like a year and a half to build. It's unbelievably detailed. It's like 2 different levels, et cetera, et cetera. And 5 of us went and did it. And one of my friends is as big as a fan of the Goonies as I am. And there was one part where we find the necklace on the skeleton who's in the dungeon in the path, and we have to use that key to just turn whatever, like something we found on the wall, which is a key to open another door in the room. He and I we were almost like emotional. We were so happy to be doing this because
Oh, I mean,
it seemed like we were in the movie, and I didn't expect to be overcome by that much joy. And so I can imagine if you have AI that allows you to interact with your favorite properties, like we think TikTok's taking a lot of our life now. People are going to be like roaming the Star Trek
well,
generation quadrants for the rest of their lives.
imagine that massive online place where you're literally going like, hey, you get catch up with friends, that you used to know in person, and that's what you're doing the weekends. Say, hey, no, we're gonna go as a family. We're gonna go on this. We can go. Let's go. Like what COVID show you, sometimes you got to have an escape when you're all at home. So like
Right.
those kind of things where you can connect people around the world to go do missions or go do things together, or like, hey, let's go play the Jurassic Park game today and see who can get eaten today,
Right.
or whatever it is. I mean, it would be amazing. I think especially if it's out in the world to some degree. So I don't know. The future is going to be fun.
Yeah.
There's going to be an awesome side of it. There'll be another side of it of data and how it's being used. But
I wonder if you can even have like to help like xenophobia in some areas. Like let's take take someone in maybe the southern U.S. The typical stereotype how people look at people from the south that are maybe they haven't traveled, but Americans I know, no matter what side of the political spectrum they're on, are so curious about the world. And I think there's just a lot of people that just haven't had the ability to travel and meet people of different cultures. So I wonder if someone is sitting in their house in, Mississippi, and they're like, well, let me go to Kenya and meet some people. And because AI, you can have a real representation of culture. And if I wonder if that opens a lot of people's hearts that maybe just because of happenstance of them not being able to travel or whatever, like that's the optimism that I have for AI that I would love to bring into people's homes or see. Being
it would be, but nothing replaces, being in Delhi and seeing that much traffic, the sounds, the smells, the
For sure.
interaction. You're just like, holy moly, I would never have imagined this because it just would have been, unless you're in it and you're moving out of the way and you're, the fear factor of dying in a car while they're going head on in traffic, all that. It's gonna be a fun world. I think AI is very cool. And I mean that in the stance that I think it has changed our world, but it's going to keep going even
Right.
forever. It's not going to stop.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'd love to pivot and talk about instantly relevant and how you're helping businesses find more leads now and how that's really working, because I can't even understand how an AI would contribute to that world.
Yeah, I appreciate that asking. Our business leverages the technology right now to accelerate humans executing. And What I mean is, we're a human-led organization that helps people find leads through social media. A big play for us, and what we do really well is on LinkedIn. And we tell people how to do it as well, because you should be trying to do these things. So if you're an entrepreneur or you're a small business owner and you're trying to leverage specifically on LinkedIn or social media better, and you've tried, like, let's say, buying ads, you've tried, cold email outreach, you've tried all these things and wasted a lot of money. We have as well, and that's why I developed the company in a way that, we start with your kind of ideal person you want to meet or persona. This is a very common thing. We get it really narrowed down. But what we do, and this is the way I've built my network from a few thousand to 173,000 people on LinkedIn, is by commenting on their posts. So it is by interacting with them in an authentic way and asking for nothing. It's kind of the first leg of the stool, right? Is to know who your audience is, and then the second leg is know what to say. And so we use a bit of technology to help look at their post, to say, hey, this would be an interesting comment that doesn't share a point of view. It's just more reflective or mirroring, but it does show that you read it, and it asks a question, and it kind of drives a conversation. So that's like the second leg of the stool to create an inbound effect. And the third is, and then this is the path of any social media. Once someone's commented on your post you don't know, and they've done it thoughtfully, without a doubt, you check, unless you're a complete narcissist, you click their image to see what their profile is. And that's kind of the third leg of the stool, is where you've landed on their profile page and you see what they do. So you communicate what I do, what I do for you, what you should follow, where you should go, and why you should take this call to action that's there. Once they see that and they have needs for that services, not that mine's perfect, but does it say, it says, generate more LinkedIn leads. It's very clear what we do. What people do then is take that call to action to reach out to you. And then in the final piece of this, kind of the fourth leg of the stool, what we do is we create content that's absolutely, giving. So it's still in the idea that this is how you solve problems. This is what the industry needs. It's not so much we do this, we do that. We create content because when people connect with you the first time or they see you interacting, your content starts showing up in their feed pretty quickly. And so if you can reinforce the value of give, the value of, I'm some type of an authority in this subject, people will connect with you pretty quickly and be interested in what you're doing. And so we don't spend money on ads. We don't spend money on the email outbounds. When you've done all that, then if you want to go out and do an email outreach to people you've already commented on, if they haven't connected with you already, it works really well. So we see usually people, 30 to 50% will inbound connect with you instantly. Probably 10% of those will want to at least meet with you because they're interested in what you're doing. And the other half will typically connect with you at an 80% rate or so because you've commented on their post, you've sent a connection, and you still haven't asked for anything. Once you've done that, you're building a relevant network. And once you have relevance, people buy from who they know, like, and trust, but that's incomplete. You need to be relevant. So once you have relevance and you have something they want to meet you for, they're going to come to you and buy it.
What industries is this working for so far?
Oh, it's across the board, from cybersecurity to healthcare to franchise coaches to executive business coaching to recruitment. It works because it's human to human. It's just enabled by technology in the background. Our customers don't know, they know we use technology. They don't really care. They just care that they're getting their profiles and their businesses out there in a way at scale and getting the inbound interest they can do so they can focus on their products or services and their customer interactions.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, because I think right now, especially with AI automation, it seems like lead generation via LinkedIn in the more traditional ways are becoming so saturated because you can just click a button and now everyone's going to the same person. So a lot of those people are getting so many more probably inbound messages and connections on LinkedIn or even emails, people just crawling sites, etc. But if you need the human connection on the other side where they're recognizing that you like you said, left a thoughtful post or have engaged with them in some way, well, then there's more incentive for them to reach out to you. And if they're reaching out to you, that is like that, it's every lead generator's dream.
Right. Well, exactly. So we don't sell anything, but people can buy our services. So we don't typically, hard sell ever. There's a very rare case that we'll directly email a group, but we will only when we've been helping like a crazy amount of your role types. Just direct, would you like to meet to learn more? And it's a yes or no. But it's really when we're coming in with real proof points, and they're just like, but even then, we've already commented on their post at least once. So it's not really that cold of an outreach. It's just people who haven't connected or have, but we haven't really talked to yet. And so we don't do cold email outreach. We've tried it. It doesn't work. So here's my thing. I would tell you a different way to think about it. If you have a list of 5,000 people and you've emailed them or messaged them, and let's say 100 have raised their hands that I'm interested, you just spam 4,900 people. And 4,900 potential targets, you're doing a slow bleed of your brand when you do that.
Yeah.
So we're hyper vigilant on protecting your brand and making sure that you're driving value in every interaction and letting people come to you, meet you where, let them meet you where they are, and where they are, meet you both ways. So you're not pushing anything on there.
Right.
And then when someone asks you for, gets in the meeting with you and they're like, hey, tell me more about you, that's when your sales funnel starts. I mean, that's the path, right? You comment, you post, people interact with you, they inbound message you, whatever else you connect, and they say, hey, would you like to meet? And this really works, by the way, better for B2B sales and probably B2C high ticket sales, like, selling solar or like a coach or something like this. For B2C, it's a little bit different of a game, but when somebody comes into your profile and they're interested in you, they're going to ask you eventually, what is it you do? And that's when your sales cycle kind of starts right there. It's like, that's where you have the opportunity to drive value, so have more questions, and take them on your path at that point.
Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. I think, man, it seems like you are really kind of the first wave of these businesses that are like human-led AI to help businesses. And on that point, actually, a question before we go. I want to be respectful of your time. For entrepreneurs that would like to jump into this space, but maybe aren't coders, aren't used to working with these technology-led sort of companies, how would they think about starting a business in this space to leverage AI to help other businesses or to just help people in general?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. So I do, one of the things each one of our customers gets, and I'll do even separately if they're not doing lead generation with us, is I do a lot of executive coaching or entrepreneurial coaching to help you think through that. So, I'm writing a book called Never Been Promoted, because I've never been promoted, but it's really about this entrepreneurial journey that I break up into kind of the three, I think of it in three different ways, or three different segments of it, where this unraveling, unbounding, and then unleashing. And in the unraveling phase, which you're describing there, is what could I do? What should I do? Who could I, become? What can I do? What's missing? How do I retool? That phase, I would say, find somebody, contact me. I'll meet with you to learn, think through that phase, because having an alignment to your capabilities, your passion, your availability of time to try it is what's going to help you be successful. In addition, just to thinking through what are the problems you've seen, what's the motivation behind it, what's the market? Because if you go down a path of something that's really cool, but no one wants it except 10 people, you better make sure that those 10 people can afford it to make a business out of it. Right. For example, if it's like the top 10 companies in the world, they absolutely need this and you can build something, that's a good model. If it's just someone like me or that doesn't, I can only pay $100 for it, it's not a good model. And so thinking through that, and then if you're kind of in the journey now where you feel like you have obstacles and fears and you're making excuses, you feel like there's people in your way, that's that unbounding. It's where you need to untether yourself from all the really the excuses you make for yourself is probably number one. That's a different part of the journey that takes some coaching sometimes to get through and some insight and perspective. And then finally, the last stage of this is that a lot of entrepreneurs come to us is when they go to unleash. And this is an interesting phase because this is where you have no safety net. You're on your own. You're a full-time entrepreneur. But at the same time, you realize you have no safety net. You've also realized that working for somebody else is also not a safety net. It's just a perceived safety net, just because the institutions and things around it make you think that. But you can be let go and things can happen instantly. So if you're, right. If you're in control of your own revenue, then you have a higher safety net. The idea is that talk to somebody, get some mentoring, get some advice, get some coaching, either formally or informally, before you start doing these things, so you can really kind of navigate it without losing interest or getting too frustrated.
Gotcha. That is a super helpful way to look at it, because I would imagine even someone that is working in a dental clinic or a hair salon, they'd be like, well, how can I use AI, or how can I build a piece of software to help these really everyday essential services that people are using? And I guess the only way is to start asking around. Right.
And so in that case, maybe software build isn't the answer. Maybe it's just leveraging the existing technologies to deliver a service. And so delivering services or that's where we position is we deliver services that use AI to help us accelerate it and do it for a better value proposition, less investment on the customer side, but higher value and outcomes and more predictable. And so leveraging it in a services business is an often way that people start businesses from home or whatever else. If you can write software, that's great. It's a different problem and a different path.
Right. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I love this thing. I think maybe, maybe 6 months down the road, I'd love to touch base again and
Of
see
course.
if, or next time GPT comes out with an update, and we can dive into exactly what system it's crashed in our lives or how it's helped everybody. So
I'll agree to that, and we'll just do it in Barcelona where you are, and then you can show me the town.
sold.
It'll
I
be
know a
great.
place we can rent a good podcast studio as well and go for tapas after. You in?
There you go. That sounds great.
All right. Thanks, Thomas. I really appreciate your time, man. This has been great.
I appreciate it. Take care.
So thanks for listening to No More, No Less. I appreciate the time you spent with me today. So please subscribe and rate the show if you enjoyed it. It'll help me create more amazing content and get that next little bit of validation that I so deeply crave. If you did enjoy it, well, that sucks. But to make sure, I think you should listen to my next 10 episodes and then decide. I mean, come on. Rome was not built in a day. I'm just getting warmed up here, guys. So thanks again. See you next time.